love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah, man. I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavill, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Welcome to episode 626 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, a show that's covering the HBCU sports diaspora, all things HBCU sports from institutions large and small, from the NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture and HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, David L. Rhodes, with my co-host, Tariq Wilson. We're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to our KCOH 12:30 a.m. studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Mr. Wilson, how you doing, sir?
You know, I'm okay. Yeah, very busy, but I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing all right, man. It's been pretty crazy at the workplace over the past couple weeks, but you know,
we can spend a whole show on that.
We could spend an entire hour on that.
We're lucky we're still able to do the show.
Yeah, man. Well, I think it's gonna be a while before they get to the point of asking about what else I do outside of work. But that's neither here nor there, man. Any news of the day that you caught up with?
Nothing in particular. I mean, I think we do have something good to talk about as far as like the HBCU athletic directors looking to Congress for some help. But nothing that I could think of outside of the big news. How about yourself?
I think for me, like another Aggie winning a track athlete of the year.
Okay.
And he's new to the team. Name's escaping me right now. I probably should pull it up. It's been a crazy week. It's been a crazy week today, man. It's been a crazy situation, to say the least, from my standpoint. It's been very crazy with everything that's been going on. But I don't want to mess up. I don't want to mispronounce his name. Naki Benjamin. He won track athlete of the week. Aggie's been taking it home for like the last couple weeks. We've gotten at least one of those athletes of the week on the track side of the tournament, and the championship is next week for the indoor title. And I think A&T's got a legitimate shot to pull it in. So hopefully they can finally get their first title. Like either we're going to get it in track, or I think we might get it in women's basketball, and we'll talk about women's basketball later. But he ended up posting his fastest time, his personal best. He runs the 200 meter. He ran a 20.88, 30th best in the nation, first in the CAA.
Wow.
So it's great. Our track programs is not, we're not where Coach Rawls had it at his peak, but we're slowly but surely, and he built a much balanced program. Like we got folks winning the field athlete of the week and the track athlete of the week. So I'm hoping that we have enough balance to get enough points on everything to finally get that title. So it's gonna be fascinating. It's gonna be fascinating to say the least there. But now we can get into what was going on regarding the commissioners. So the MEAC, SWAC, CIAA, and SIC, they all jointly wrote a letter to Congress, pretty much discussing the current landscape when it comes to college athletics, and particularly they wrote the letter to the Congressional Black Caucus. It sounded like, hey, we need your help to try to have some federal NIL, which I've spoken about this in previous shows about my opinion on an expectation for Congress to do this. And as somebody who works in federal service, I think they have probably like 150 other things that's in front of the line before you were touching NIL. I think it has to be a big enough impact, not just for HBCUs, but across the board before they finally get up and do something. And considering the landscape currently and how things are being operated from that standpoint, it doesn't appear that they're in a rush. I mean, they had Nick Saban up there talking about it and things of that sort, doing hearings in the past. I just don't think it's like high on their list. I'm curious about your perspective on it, Tariq.
Yeah, I mean, I did read through what they were requesting or asking for. It really wasn't fully clear to me because we talked about some topics for the show. I mean, I guess most HBCUs are in the South, right? And those congressmen have constituencies that cross many borders. Like, if you got to help A&T, you've got High Point over there. You've got UNC Greensboro. You know what I'm saying? You've got so many other constituencies within the footprint of these HBCUs. Like, why would their opponents favor that who are operating in the same space? So I think it's an uphill battle. I guess the larger question I have is like, they did want some relief about, the thing that's about, considering help in considering athletes as employees, because once you consider them as employees, that changed the landscape for HBCUs. I just think that's an interesting argument, right? Like, and I'm, of course, for HBCU proponents, but if you can't afford to pay your employees, then you got to reconsider like your business model. Like, if the move is like all these athletes at the bigger schools, mid-level, are being considered as employees, and we're part of that movement, but we can't afford to treat them as employees, we got to reconsider the whole business model. You think? I mean, they're saying we can't afford to pay them. We need help.
But the question I have is that the intention for the P4 programs, is to treat them as employees? I'm not sure that's the case.
But that's coming.
I think that's coming, but like, and I mentioned this, I might have mentioned it on here, but I kind of attribute it to how wrestling, because we got a Southern also wrestling, and I'm from the South, I'm South Carolina, but how wrestling is treated, right? They treat those folks as independent contractors.
Yeah. Like,
they're under contract, but they're independent contractors. So there's a lot of things, there's some things that, like if they get hurt, WWE or TNA or whatever, they'll take care of them, type of thing.
Right.
But for the most part, they're independent contractors, but they have to work in that space, that particular company, whichever one they signed for. So why couldn't it be something like that? Yeah, you're gonna have to write a contract, but if you're talking about potentially if you opt in or opt out of the NCAA lawsuit, you're gonna have to have some level of a contract if you make the decision to opt in.
Right. I mean, and the CAA schools have opted in.
Yep.
Right. Yep. So, I mean, this is the paragraph that read me. This is the HBCU game day schedule. They said a primary concern is the push to classify student athletes as employees. The commissioners argue that unlike major athletic programs, most HBCUs do not generate significant revenue from sports and rely on institutional funding. If student athletes were reclassified as employees, it could force many HBCU programs to cut sports entirely, eliminating opportunities for student athletes.
Yeah, that's a legitimate concern. And I think the other thing you have to take into account is, do you put the bearing on the students by increasing the student fees, which is probably something that a lot of schools don't want to do. I mean, we just recently had the president of Talladega College just write an op-ed explaining why he made a decision to cancel gymnastics. So,
yeah, so what do you think should happen? I mean, I think I'm still trying to figure. I do think that we got to find a way to pay these guys.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I've said this, and I think a lot of folks, feel away about, particularly within the HBCU landscape, feel away about what I've said. But I'm team paid players, so I'm not gonna be out here saying that we shouldn't pay them.
Same.
Now, with regards to how you pay them, that's a whole different ball game. But I know, but the P4s, they're trying to not make them employees, and I think this saying make that concern in the letter. I think you're putting the cart before the horse. I think the first step is you need to the conference has got to decide whether you're going to let the schools opt out individually, or we're going to be in sync to whether we're going to opt in or opt out from that standpoint. So I think that's the first step. So I don't know. I don't think neither one of them have kind of been open, have had any discussions about who's going to do what. Like, I've heard rumblings from different individual institutions, but I'm not going to get into that. But from the standpoint of whether you make the decision, whether you're going to opt in or opt out, or if you decide to do it as a conference or not, it's going to get fascinating, because I think conference realignment season is something that's always going to be a thing. And I would think that you want to try to do it as a conference. But I think there's this perception that if you opt in, that means you got a rev share. And I don't think that's the case at all. And I'm with AJ there. Like, I don't think just because you decide to opt in doesn't mean you got to do the revenue sharing. I think that's just more of a matter of, you got to understand that this is what the rule sets you have, and you got to decide how you want to fund your programs. Because I don't like with A&T and Hampton opting in, right? Because they're in the conference, they're in the CAA, the whole conference opt in to it. So from that standpoint, the school's got to decide what they're going to invest in. Now you can get up to 105 scholarships in football. How many are you truly going to invest? So now you can like almost triple your baseball scholarships if you have a baseball program. How much are you willing to invest? Your track program is increased. Your volleyball program is increased. I think one of the only ones that didn't have to increase didn't increase was primarily was women's basketball. They didn't increase. They were already getting the 15 scholarship allotment, but the men's basketball went up to 15. So, but it's roster limits. You don't have to give a scholarship to all that. It's just the option. So you can decide if you want to go that far. Just like you can decide how you want to handle the NIL situation, I think it could potentially make it easier if you want to do NIL and let the schools manage it, if they have the infrastructure to do that.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like to me, it's going to be a lot driven by your conference, right? And what they're doing. Like, if you're trying to be competitive within the CAA and their revenue sharing in a certain way, so, hey, come to Towson, come to William & Mary, you're going to get this certain salary or contract to pay here. And then, our schools are like, hey, the market is going to force us to react to whatever, our schools determine. And like, it seems like they're ready to start writing some checks. They're going to have to. They're going to have to. Like, somebody will, because there's some well-resourced schools in our league, and we're going to have to keep up or leave. I don't know what the options are.
Well, you keep up. You either going to keep up or you decide to stay and continue to get beat up in the conference.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's the ultimate, right? Like, there comes a point where you got to make that decision on whether or not if it's worth the squeeze if you're not willing to do the investment. But I think the other thing that people have to realize too is that the commissioners have a valid point. We don't generate significant revenue, but the big schools, a lot of them lose money too.
Yeah.
Right. So there's that aspect of it all. I think there's going to come a point where too much, like a lot of schools there's a lot of big, like Ohio State is running off a deficit. They just won a national championship.
Now remember that. Now some of those schools were running a deficit on purpose before we entered into this NIL deal, so they can say, hey, we're in the red, so we can't pay these dudes. Like, some of that was accounting tricks. Some of them were really in the red, but for some schools it was accounting tricks. Hey, we ain't got no money left to pay these guys. So really open up the books and see, where the money's going. And then, some are losing money, but some accounting tricks.
And to go back to the wrestling reference, they don't have a union. And for those who don't know the story of why wrestling doesn't have a union, because at the time Jesse the Body Ventura was trying to have a union, and Hulk Hogan snitched on him, and pretty much he crossed the line, so to speak. And
you don't say, brother.
and the separation got created. Separation was created, and then the wrestlers just never had a union at that point. That was the last time a discussion point about having a union occurred, and that was like close to 30, 40 years ago. So they never had a union up to this point. And this is great news, breaking news from Dr. CAVIL'S. The SWAC is going to opt in, which is beautiful. I think that is the wise choice. Mm-hmm. And I think Dr. McClellan, the commissioner of the SWAC, when he was speaking at Southern University, he discussed the fact that about the lawsuit. So the vibes I got from that sounded like he was going to opt in. And I think that's the right move to do. I truth be told, I think that might reduce the lawsuit count. I think schools is going to opt in. It's going to have to create I think there might be a different level of responsibility if they decide to try to go on the NIL side of the fence. But I also think when you talk about expansion, if you have everybody that's in sync saying that they're going to do this, that helps when it's time to start bringing teams in. So that's why I think it's important that the conferences have to be in sync in what decisions that they're going to make, whether they're going to opt in or opt out. I think the thing that I find fascinating about this is the fact that you have all four commissioners, because I don't think and I know it's going to impact Division II, but I don't think the CIAA and the SAIC has the same type of problems that the MEAC and the SWAC have from the standpoint of NIL. I think it's going to take a little bit longer before we get to the point of that.
Right.
So
I mean, I think the thing we got to do at the end of the day is find a way to get some of these men and women to come back home. Yeah. And I mean, that's somehow that has maybe the current events will help force that, but if we can get some of them come back home, then we have a different product, and we can get some more exposure and revenue that way. But that's I think that's the ultimate solution for competitiveness. But it's as we see, it keeps changing, right? And one thing is, like the Supreme Court has said, like, don't come back here with no other NCAA. Don't come back here. Like, figure out a way to let the market run, because if you come back, we're gonna completely smack you down. So it's like, there's an inertia here where it's just the market.
It boils down to this: you can't always depend on the government to fix your problems.
Right.
You just can't. And I think that's what the NCAA kept trying to do. They're like, hey, please fix this. They put in somebody that knows the politics, and it still hasn't been working. To run the NCAA, and it's not, and the traction hasn't been gained. I think the power forwards are going to make the calls. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the other 28 or so conferences are going to have to decide which way they want to go. Like, you gotta decide, are you going to play or you're not going to play?
Right.
And so props to the SWAC for making a decision, regardless whether it's opt in or opt out. And I think it's a wild decision to opt in, but to the fact that the conference is in sync with regards to that. We haven't heard anything from the MEAC yet. We're gonna get to your little beholders, man. We're gonna do that after the break. Okay. We're gonna get into the beholders. We're gonna talk about the women's program. I got an opinion on the top 5 that Dr. CAVIL'S had. I feel away, but we'll get into that after the break. So when we come back, we'll talk about women's basketball. This is episode 626 of Dr. CAVIL'S Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, the Indy Report.
Let's face it, shopping for insurance can be time-consuming. That's why when it comes to your auto, home, and life insurance needs, make things simple and trust the experts at Allstate. They will help you get the coverage that fits your needs while helping you bundle your life, home, and auto policies. Bundling saves you money, sure, but it also saves you time, so you can enjoy the things that matter most even more. Contact me, Tammy Haynes, your local agent, for a free personalized insurance quote. Allstate, are you in good hands?
There's a shot. It might be. It could be. Right field. Grand slam. What a shot. That's how you get hot, young fella.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do, and all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food? Like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
Oh, we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant. Authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door. Tell your mama hungry.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna loud, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Welcome back to episode 626 of Dr. CAVIL'S Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, the Indy Report. All right. We'll start with women's basketball, and I'm going to go ahead and be honest with you, man. You haven't seen the top 5 that Dr. CAVIL came out with yesterday, and I didn't have time to watch it. The reason of why my Lady Aggies are sitting at number 5. Because let me tell you, man. I'm gonna be honest. I feel a way about it. I really do, and I part of it is because there's been a lot of things going on in the SWAC right now. Currently, the SWAC there's a 3-way tie for first place in the SWAC. Texas Southern, and Jackson State are all tied for first place in the conference. Now Texas Southern has been playing really well, but they've had a couple losses recently. But I think, in my opinion, the parity that is occurring in the SWAC should catapult A&T up to 2. And I think A&T is the second best women's basketball team in college in HBCU basketball. So
I agree.
I mean, I can't say they're number one.
Being one is Norfolk State women.
Yeah, of course they are, and they should be. They should be. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing right now. They are dominating the MEAC right now, and that's what they're going to have to do to get a 14 seed. And then if they get fortunate and somebody slips up, they might have a shot to get a 13. Optimally, it'd be nice to get a 12, and I think they might have a chance to pull an upset. The top 4 seed, going up against the top 4 seed is tough. But I think Norfolk State has an opportunity to surprise some folks if they can get the right seeding, depending on how the matchup lies. Like they cannot run into North Carolina after what happened in the last time. But other than that, I think North Carolina was just not a good matchup for them. So hopefully, if they can get to a 5, if they can get to the 12 seed and end up going up against a 5 where they don't have to where it's a neutral site, that's optimal. That's just my thought on with that regard. But right, just so
the SWAC women's records here, it's interesting, man. It's a larger conversation, right? It's like you start is the same record in the CAA worth the same record as the SWAC? Is the SWAC record?
I mean, you got to decide that point you got to start thinking about net scores and things of that sort. Like, and I'll be honest. So let me go through the top 5 real fast. For the sake of number 5 was on Dr. CAVIL'S top 5 that he introduced yesterday. For the ladies, number 5 was North Carolina A&T. Number 4 was Jackson State. Number 3 was Texas Southern. Number 2 was Southern. Number 1 was Norfolk State. I would push A&T up to 2, and I'm fine with having Southern at 3, Texas Southern at 4, and then Jackson State at 5. I would just move A&T up to 2 and leave the other one as is. I think Southern should be the top SWAC school out of the 3. And based on the numbers from the net scores, Southern is the highest rated team in the SWAC. They're the only ones in the top 200. And for context, in the CAA, there's 4 teams in the top 200.
Yeah, I mean, the A&T women, I mean, they lost to Georgia by 12, but you beat Wake Forest. You beat Liberty.
No, that was last year. That was
last year? Oh,
yeah,
okay,
that was last year.
Oh,
so this year. So the thing is, like, even in the CAA, and to be fair, the highest rated team in the net in the CAA is College of Charleston. And part of the reason why is because of how well their out-of-conference record was. Like, A&T's out-of-conference record wasn't nearly as good as it should have been. There was opportunities for them to get wins, but they kind of didn't. Okay. They kind of didn't get there.
All right, I was looking at last year. I was looking at that. That's what pulled up first.
Yeah, you said I went to the game in Georgia because that's how I knew, right? I got my speed. I got a speed ticket on the way to that game.
Man, in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, that's why I got my last ticket too.
Yeah, it was a classic speed trap too.
I was going fast, but all right, I can see that. All right, this no good out of conference wins for the Aggies to really separate themselves. I guess the CAA schedule. Now you guys been kicking butt there, but okay, it's a little bit of a discussion then. Okay, I thought it was last year's schedule.
Yeah, but either way, and Dr. Cavill, and I love him. Don't get me wrong. He always talks about it's about winning, right? A&T won their last game. They won by 18 against Northeastern. And now, granted, at the time, Northeastern ain't won a conference game yet. They finally got their first conference win. Shout out to them. The way that it was, I went to that game. I was in Boston. I went to that game in Boston because they played in Boston. And the way that they were shooting lights out. So shout out to them for getting the job done out in Boston. Like, it was cold too, man. But Northeastern was shooting lights out, and I said they're gonna probably finally get a one, and they ended up getting their next one. So shout out to them. Luckily, it wasn't against y'all because I was very concerned about that. But y'all did pull out and get a conference win too. Y'all beat Stony Brook.
That's right. We've been playing a lot better.
Yeah, y'all been playing a lot better, which makes y'all dangerous in the tournament. For those who don't know, all 14 teams in the CAA enter the tournament. Top 4 seeds get a double bye. So it's critical to get in that tournament.
Last three games, Lady Pirates are 1-2, but lost to William & Mary in overtime, and they lost to Monmouth by 2, and they beat Stony Brook by 2. So at least they're competitive and winning. So it's at least trending in the right direction.
Yeah, it's taking time, man. I mean, I think once your new coach, Coach Tamika, right? I think his name Tamika. Once Coach Tamika, gets to build her program, I think that team's going to get good, man. Like I think
everybody's a believer.
They're doing what they need to do.
Yep, everybody's a believer.
Yep. A&T did not. Y'all lost to Monmouth 62-60 on Sunday. A&T did not have to play on Sunday. You guys had to delay a game. You had to delay your men's and your women's basketball game, right, because of the weather.
Yeah, it's snowing down here, man.
Oh, man.
We got 4 inches here in Durham.
Wow.
Yeah.
Y'all ain't used to that. Y'all ain't built for that, man.
Well, actually, when I first got down here in the South, because I'm from Jersey, right? So, used to the snow. When I got down here, I used to laugh at them until you saw like 1 inch of snow and then people in the ditch. People going off a little embankment. So I understand, like, they don't really treat the roads. So I understand they do. They should freak out because it ain't pretty. It's funny.
So the next game's up for the ladies. A&T's playing William & Mary at William & Mary on Friday. I think they've postponed the Charleston game against Hampton for you guys. I think you guys are playing on Monday, I believe, or Tuesday.
Yep.
Y'all playing Tuesday on the 25th. And on Sunday, Delaware comes to Greensboro. And I don't think you guys have to play on Sunday. Yeah, y'all don't have to play. You only got one game this weekend. So big games. At William & Mary should be a tough one for the Lady Aggies. I'm hoping to try to get to the game. Like, I'm driving down to Hampton University this weekend to do Admitted Students Day. We're gonna see, we'll see what decision my daughter decides to make. So we're heading down there for that. So I'm hoping, since I'm driving Friday, I might be able to pull up to the game with the kids and check out the landscape. I'm always fascinated when I head to these other schools on the road to see what they're looking like over there. I've never been to William & Mary, so that'll be a nice little quick road trip because it's not that far from Hampton. So,
yep.
Any other thoughts with regards to ladies basketball?
None. Any thoughts on Tennessee State? I was looking at their record. They're 8-19. So they've
been playing better.
Yeah.
So I think they're making strides. I mean, they lost to UT Martin pretty rough though. They lost by 21 points to UT Martin. Yeah.
And East Illinois by 20. But they did beat SIUE, Southern Illinois something. I don't know. They beat them by 20, 19. Yeah. So win big or lose big. It seems like that's what they do.
That's what Tennessee Straight is rolling with. I mean, the men is doing what they need to do, and we'll talk about the men after the break.
Yep.
So we're about to take our second break. We'll be right back, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the men's programs. This is Dr. CAVIL'S inside HBCU Sports Lab, the Indy Report.
It's like a loop machine. All around town, trying to get down. It's like a loop machine.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Sonia from She Say Sports. Make sure to check us out every Friday morning at 9 a.m. on Black College Sports Network, YouTube, and Linktree. And please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Welcome back to Dr. CAVIL'S inside the HBCU Sports Lab, the Indy Report, episode 626. Before we talk about the men's basketball, I want to go over this top five because I thought the top five was fascinating on the men's side as well. I got Dr. CAVIL'S has number 5, South Carolina State Bulldogs, 8-5. Number 4, Jackson State Tigers, 9-4. Number 3, Florida A&M Rattlers, 9-4. Number 2, Norfolk State Spartans, 8-1. And number 1, Southern Jaguars, 12-1. Norfolk should be number 1. And that's pretty much it for me. Norfolk should be number 1. FAMU should absolutely be at 3. I know I don't know if I'm assuming he signed the contract, the extension that they gave Coach Prairie, the Board of Trustees approved. But the bottom line is on the men's side, as you noticed, there were no independents in the top 5. But there were some positive things that happened over the last week. A&T finally got their first conference win. They beat Elon 60-59. 5-21, 1-12 in the CAA. Big win for them. And you guys beat Drexel, and y'all are 5-8 in the CAA. 13-13, 5-8. So y'all playing well, man. It's gonna be interesting to see when tourney time rolls around. And on Saturday, let me see. We played Charleston. We lost by 10 to Charleston, 69-59. And you guys beat up on Hofstra pretty good, man. 67-49. What is going on with Hofstra?
That's a good call. I wonder if they got injuries. I mean, they were supposed to be good this year.
I mean, they got a pretty good coach. I mean, for those who know, Speedy Class, former NBA player, Speedy Class is the coach for that.
Yeah.
For that squad. But yeah, I was kind of taken aback at how
12
what the
and
record
15.
was.
They're 12 and 15, right? Yeah, it's got to be
Before joining
injuries,
conference.
or just some bad juju.
I mean,
But yeah, I'm
speed
happy
isn't-
that we won. I mean, yeah, I mean, I Hampton's doing very well. I mean, I think two things have happened. Noah Farrakhan has gotten healthy. I think Coach kind of hinted that he may have been having some ankle issues, and it seemed like that's gotten straightened out. So he's playing extremely well. And Kyrie's Mullen, they finally figured out how to use him and get him involved. So, and he was a CAA first team all preseason selection. So getting those two guys right has been a good thing. Because early they were, depending a lot on the new guys, the freshmen, and you never knew what you get from them. But those two guys now, that those are vets basically in college. So that I think they're key to the turnaround for the Pirates.
It's gonna get interesting, man. I think now is the time where you got to be playing your best basketball, because then the CAA tournament is a gauntlet. Now on the men's side, typically the top teams tend to be the ones near the end of the spectrum. That's not the case on the women's side. I mean, since A&T's been in the conference, the highest seed that's won that tournament on the women's side is the 7th seed. So from that standpoint, I think it's a different type of gauntlet on the women's side because there's a lot of balance over there. But on the men's side, typically the top teams are the top teams. And if I recall, I got to pull up the standings for the CAA real fast. I believe the best team in that conference right now is Townsend. Yeah, it's Townsend. Townsend, UNC Wilmington, and Charleston are the top three teams with William & Mary and Campbell. And Campbell's been playing really well.
Yeah.
Over the last couple games. So A&T's dead last. We might have a chance to get a second win against Stony Brook. We got them coming up on the schedule. The next games coming up for A&T and Hampton are, so this Thursday we got Campbell's coming to Greensboro to play A&T. You guys got the game that was postponed. Y'all scheduled to play Stony Brook at Hampton. But I think that game is going to be on Monday or Tuesday, I believe. Let me see.
Stony Brook is Monday, 24th.
Yeah, it's Monday. Okay. Because it just says postponed on the site. And on Saturday, Stony Brook plays A&T, which is in Greensboro. So that might be the other opportunity to get a second win. If we do that, then we'll be tied with Stony Brook with 2 wins in the conference, which is much needed. And you guys play UNC Wilmington on CBS Sports Network at Hampton. So that should be a good one, man. Y'all better have a crowd there for that one, man. You're going to have CBS there.
UNC, they are 117 KenPom's ranking. UNC Wilmington, they're at 21-6. So they're stout, and they beat us up pretty bad last time.
Oh God! I mean, one thing I got to give the Aggies credit for, man. All the games that were nationally televised, they almost won every single one of them. They weren't blowouts, and they had
might have had some money on it or something.
Oh, stop! Not today. Not today. Not today, man.
I teed that one up. That was good.
I know you did. You sure did. But all right, let's Oh yeah, I think you have to give it to him at this point. It don't matter what he does.
They gave him that extension, right? Didn't they give him a contract extension?
They gave him a contract extension. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna Prairie is already coach of the year. There's nobody else that's gonna pass him at this point. They've exceeded expectations in FAMU. Nobody saw this coming. Nobody. They've won more games this year than I think they've won over the last 2. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. AJ,
that's cool because nobody's even watching.
AJ, don't get messy, man. AJ, don't get messy. Don't get messy, AJ. Don't get messy, AJ. That is a good question. Did he sign the contract?
Yeah,
I don't think it matters.
Question.
I think, and initially I said he shouldn't sign it, but then I thought about it. I'm like, no, you should sign it. It ain't that much if you decide to go somewhere else after a year. I would sign it. But no, it's a good question. I mean, did he sign it? But we'll see. It'll be interesting.
He should sign it. If I was,
no, he absolutely should sign it. But I think him signing it isn't going to change the fact if he decides to walk away. Is my point.
Right.
Like I don't.
That's true.
I think the funniest thing that could happen right now is if FAMU wins the SWAC tournament. If he shows up and they end up winning that tournament, now I'm not, right now. If you ask me, I think Southern's going to do it, right? But if he messes around and win that SWAC tournament, I think FAMU might be looking for another coach unless they're going to increase that salary of his. So they have to reapprove the extension because you're going to have to pay him more than what you're paying him now if he wins that tournament in the first year.
That'd be interesting. What's his background? Is this his first head coach?
No, he was a head coach in NIA in NIA in AIA. Okay. Yeah, he had much success there, ability to recruit, knew how to coach, phenomenal coach. Like, you know, part of the reason why that they made the decision to not give him the initial 3-year deal. I mean, some would say it's because of the AD that was offering it, and others would say it was because they didn't feel like he had enough credentials to be coaching. Even though, like, the guy that won the SWAC last year was also an NIA coach before. So I okay. If you can coach, you can coach. Like, right. You know, I mean, track program, when A&T had Coach Ross, he came from a Division III school. You can coach, you can coach.
A lot of the big time coaches are from Division III and smaller schools, especially in basketball. Yeah. So I mean, that's what they're.
I know, and you know, and you're right. I mean, he is. I think A&T has been playing much better since the 3 players got suspended. Believe it or not, like, I think they're playing more team ball. I think they're leveraging their big men more because they don't have much of a choice because they're pretty much on a 6-man rotation right now. So I think overall, I think they're playing much better than they have before. So I have no issue if they make the decision to move to continue with Ross as the head coach. I just think you should always keep your options open.
Can he recruit? That's the question, right? I mean, the man can coach, but can he bring in the boys to play? That's.
Well, I will give him. I'm going to give him some level of grace because when he took over the program, he had a lot of folks hop into the portal, including players that said they weren't going to hop into the portal, and you know, and because of that put him in a rough bind the first year. But I think the error that he made this year was making a decision to try to keep some of the players. One of the players that got suspended got NIL money. Like, so when you take those things into account, that was a rub. So I think him coaching well now was a good thing to see from that standpoint because the team is playing much better, and I think he can recruit. I mean, he convinced Brooklyn Victor to come to A&T over Syracuse. So in Louisville, so. Yeah, no, I think he can recruit. I mean, you know, so we'll see. It'll be interesting.
How about our Tennessee State brethren? They're
Tennessee 14 State
and 14.
They are in the top 4 too.
Yeah.
So they are sitting pretty right now from that standpoint. Their next game is against Tennessee Tech, but last week if my computer
they're on a good little run here.
Oh yeah, they're playing really well.
Yeah.
They lost their last game against Edwardsville, SIU Edwardsville, 84-72. But other than that, man, they've been playing really well, man. Like I'm happy to see it. If they keep this momentum going, they could if they can stay in the top 4. That's the key to get the buys. If they can stay in the top 4. Yep, this is a fact. That is a fact. And we always talk about our HBCUs having limited resources, but if you can win games at NIA level, that's probably why Coach Prairie is doing what he's doing now with FAMU, considering the circumstances. He didn't have much of a team. He pretty much recruited that team without even being on contract. So, you know, what he's doing is amazing. What Coach Prairie is doing at FAMU is outstanding. So it makes you motivated that maybe FAMU's ready to be a basketball school. Maybe.
No.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Southern's the basketball school. We know that. Southern's a basketball school. Grambling might be one too.
Norfolk State.
Norfolk State's been a basketball school since I've known Norfolk State.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think somebody's going to knock off Norfolk State in the men's side, man?
Well, South Carolina State has potential. I mean, they've got some good teams at the top, but I mean, no, I don't think so. Because they have a good team, man. I mean, they're not just like perimeter oriented. They got some dudes that can get you some buckets inside. So they got some things that they can lean on that are going to be there. So if someone beats them, it'll be a shock. The sad part is that, those guys, hopefully they'll be like, get a good seed, if they get to the tournament. But I expect them to do it. Actually, I was watching them play they can get got. I mean, who they beat? Central on a buzzer beater, right? Last week. I was watching that game.
Who you talking
about? Norfolk State.
Oh yeah, well,
so they can get got,
They can get got, but I mean, right now that school down the road, they're 4-5, man. They're 6 in the conference. I mean, we shouldn't even be discussing them right now. To be honest with you, I mean, they're not that good. Like, I mean, they're just not. They're not that good. They got to figure out what they're going to do with Coach. And I don't think Coach Moten's going anywhere because of all the goodwill he's already had. But
it's a quiet topic here in Durham. Some murmurs. Some murmurs.
I've heard there was some murmurs, but I don't think nothing's going to happen, man.
I think I equate it to Joyner. Like, it took about 5 years for Hampton to really move on from Joyner. Eventually it will. I mean, especially, what'll accelerate things if y'all start winning. As long as they doing better than y'all, I think he got a life. But
I mean, we beat him. We beat him over 20 on CB. We beat him over 20 on CBS.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool. But then when they look at the record, they can say,
We went 2-0 against the MEAC. We went 2-0 against the MEAC this year.
Yeah.
I just want to remind them that we did go 2-0 against the MEAC. Like, we got 5 wins, and 2 out of those 5 wins were against MEAC teams. We beat the school down the road, and we beat Morgan State. And Morgan State is the only team that's beat Norfolk.
Yeah.
And Morgan State's going to be fascinating in the tournament, too, by the way. Like, they're going to be very fascinating in the tournament. And Delaware State, too.
Yep.
Like,
I'd like to see Norfolk State again. I wish Hampton could see them now. I'd like to see them right now. No. But one other thing that is great is the kid from Howard who's balling. He balled
Bryce Harper.
Both games against Hampton. Man, couldn't do nothing with him. Nothing.
The thing about Bryce, oh man, I hope Howard's got them ready to pay that man. They're gonna have to.
Yeah, got to. They got to. They got to. They
got to figure that one out.
A 6-figure bag somewhere per year, somewhere.
I want to pivot. I want to pivot the football real fast. I don't think I want to do any more breaks before we close out the show. Yeah, I mean, we had Jason Ivey there. He did well at the Combine. I guess he showed out the Combine. So shout out to Jason Ivey. He's an Aggie. But I'm not shocked we don't have any players, man. We were a pretty bad football team last year. I mean, I don't know what to. I don't know what to say. I think Jason and yes. He only was invited to the Combine, but he balled. He showed out. But here's the kicker. I mean, that's a prime example of when you take advantage of your opportunity. Because from what I understand, a lot of folks were buzzing about Jason Ivey during the Combine because he had all the measurables and he pretty much dominated the offensive line drills from that standpoint. But one thing is clear when it comes to A&T, the offensive line typically isn't the problem. Yeah. We got probably one of the best offensive line coaches in all of FCS football. And Ron Mattis, and he's gotten players to the league. So there's no question of the capability of the coaching over there from that standpoint. There's been one constant during the Broadway era, since Broadway's been the head coach. Ron Mattis has been the offensive line coach since the Broadway era. That's how long he's been there.
Wow, he loves it.
He loves A&T. Loves A&T. And he could have had opportunities to go elsewhere. He probably could have been the head coach if he wanted to be. But he loves A&T. He's gonna, when he decides to move on, it's gonna make a difference. It's gonna be interesting. But it's gonna be fascinating. I know the game is this weekend. Make sure you guys go watch. Yeah, I agree.
A couple guys in there doing well.
Yeah, I mean McDaniel from Jackson State's doing well. Even the wide receiver from the school down the road, he showed out too. I hate those guys, but they have a wide receiver right now that has a legitimate shot. But the thing is, man, nowadays, when you talk about when you talk about football and right now and the HBCU Combine, I think it's important that folks take advantage of those opportunities because there's not any other place where you're going to have all 32 teams that have scouts that are going to be there. Like your pro day, all due respect to everybody that's having pro days, 32 NFL teams aren't going to be at your pro day.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. Like, I mean, you might, if you get 15, that's a win. All right. But all 32 won't be there. And I'm not trying to say that to be discouraging. It's just the truth. Because if you have a pro day up against a Power 4 school or up against a G5 school, they're going to go to those instead. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it is. So, you know, from that standpoint, I just want folks to understand and make sure you take advantage of those opportunities. Because I heard I got wind that some folks made a decision to not do the combine but playing the game, and I'm like, yeah, you guys can't do that.
Mm.
You can't do that because you got to be careful because you might impact opportunities for the people after you, too.
Right.
You got to take that all into account. Like, so when you start making a decision to say you're going to come, you should participate in everything. Unless you're not allowed to, like Jason Ivey, who wasn't invited to play in the game. He was just invited to the combine.
Making business decisions. Is that why they're not playing?
But that's the thing,
you're
right?
not really in a position to do that, right? I mean, you gotta get every rep.
No, you're not. Like, I mean, you're talking about the best of the best. So when you take that into account, you got to take advantage of every opportunity. Like you don't give them another reason of why not to. Right. And that's what you do when you make those decisions. Because I think if you're like a P4 team, if you're a P4 player, you can do that. Like if you're like Shador or Cam Ward, you can do that. But you can't do that if you're a prospect at an HBCU where you know you got to take advantage of every opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
You're not there yet, and those are the things that you just got to take into account. But we'll see. It'll get interesting to see like who ends up coming out of the camp. I know everybody's talking, hey, maybe we'll get a draft pick. I think there might be only one guy that might get drafted, and that's if we're lucky. I think most folks are going to be undrafted free agents, and that's your chance to get into and that some would argue. Some would say it's better to be an undrafted free agent to make the team than it is to be a 7th round pick to make the team.
Right, because you can also pick your team too, right?
Yep. Yeah. If you got 3 teams vying for you, you got some negotiation. Sometimes you get a better contract than some of the 7th round picks do.
Yeah.
So I think that depends. So I think, you know, I always say if you're like a 7th round pick, I think you'd rather be a UDFA at this point because then you might have the opportunity to get called up on a team that you have a legitimate shot to make the team. Sometimes some people pick these guys and they don't have a shot. They don't have a chance today if they get drafted in the 7th round to make that team. Like I cover the Panthers. I do have a weekly show on the Panthers, and you know we drafted a 7th round pick. We ended up trading them. We ended up trading them before he even got to play a snap for us.
Oh well, y'all did
because we were going to cut him. Because we were going to cut him. We traded him because we were going to end up cutting him anyway.
Right.
So, you know, there's only 1,700 players in the NFL. So, you know, it's a small few. So you got to take advantage of every opportunity. But I think the players that are doing their thing in the combine, I've heard some outstanding things from that standpoint. The NFL combine's coming up in a couple weeks, so we're going to see how that goes. And we're going to go ahead and close out the show, man, unless you have any final thoughts before I do the outro.
Nope, no other thoughts, man. Good show.
All righty, sir. When that's the case, we can go ahead and close this show out. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. We look forward to next week as we discuss the latest news in the lab. Follow me on Twitter at ChampD1012. You can follow Big Reek at HUPowership.com and get all your news, and also check out his podcast that he does with Jeff Wilson. They do a weekly podcast on what's going on. Jeff Johnson. So sorry, Jeff Wilson. Tariq Wilson. My bad. Jeff Johnson. And they do a phenomenal podcast on HU and all the athletic programs with regards to them. Also follow Dr. Kenyatta CAVIL'S on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Follow Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Facebook and Inside the HBCU Sports Lab on YouTube. Dream big and continue to move forward. We will talk to you soon. Reek.
Of course.
Lecture dismiss. You guys have a good week, guys.
Yep.